I need to tell you something. I need to move on. It's not you, it's me. But it was great while it lasted. First of all, I'm sorry for all that drama, but it does feel like a breakup because I've been using Procreate now for over 5 to 6 years. As some of you know, my name is Shubham Khurana. I'm the creator of Corporate Comics, which is a webcomic page on Instagram with over 210k followers. I recently had my first collection of comics published into a book called Monday to Friday. So if you haven't, please do check it out. But I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why I'm moving on from Procreate to Adobe Fresco. Now, Adobe Fresco is not a new app. There were some things about it which were tempting even earlier, right from the start, but they were not convincing enough for me to move from Procreate. Also, especially because I used to do very straightforward 2D art. Some of those reasons have become extremely compelling. But the third one is possibly the biggest reason why I'm really shifting, because that really surprised me. The first reason is actually the brushes. I feel that the native pixel brushes in Adobe Fresco are a lot more realistic compared to Procreate. Debatable. One may argue that you have a lot of tools available at your disposal to make fairly realistic brushes when it comes to Procreate also, but I have a very different experience. But that's not the only reason why I'm saying brushes in Fresco are better. Just for let me just open some of my favorite brushes. So I really love to use their charcoal brushes and their pastel brushes in Fresco. Pastel Square is like one of my absolute favorites. And for just demonstration purposes, let me just draw this apple. Okay. What I find extremely amazing about Fresco is how beautiful they've made some of these brushes to really imitate like real world brushes. Now, with Apple Pencil becoming more and more capable, that is going to become all the more important, and that makes it tilt a lot more in favor of Fresco anyway, because I do think that the brushes, realistic as they are, can really make use of some of that technology as well. The other big reason are these 2 types of brushes which are not there on Procreate. The first is actually just what you call the live brushes, which are actually dynamic brushes. So let me show you. Fresco has the option of these dynamic brushes, which are either watercolor or oil. Now let me select again one of my favorite ones, which is watercolor wash soft, and try to just create a separate layer and do it in the background. It's as sort of real imitation as it can get, because they are not just static brushes, they're actually dynamic. They interplay with each other as well. As you see, they're beautifully mixing with each other, as realistic as you're painting on an actual drawing sheet with watercolors. There are multiple options to choose between watercolors. There are multiple options to choose between oil, if oil is more your style. The third types of brushes which actually exist in Fresco and are not there on Procreate are actually vector brushes versus, let's say, normal pixel art. Vector is infinitely expandable, and some of you are used to using vector tools such as Illustrator. Some of you who do client work, some of you who print your art later into larger sizes, vector is absolutely the best way to go about it. So here's an example of me just, let's say, drawing a vector line. And as you can see, once I scale it, and again, pardon the terrible looking apple, but if you see at infinite scale also, while the pixel art is starting to break, the vector art is as scalable as possible, and the edges are as sharp as they were even in the miniature version. Reason number 2 is actually just the fact that Adobe Fresco belongs to the Adobe family. Now, it's not just a tag of Adobe which I'm talking about. Procreate's also a fairly renowned brand name, and they keep bringing in features much before you even anticipate. However, there have been many times where I have needed to send some of my files for printing, and for all of those use cases, I needed to send Photoshop files or PSDs, because those are what a lot of industry practitioners use. In Procreate also, there's a feature of converting your art and sending them as separate PSD layers. each of those times I realized that the PSTs I sent were pretty much unusable and we had to find some other alternatives. Some of the layers actually had washed out colors, some of the layers did not even have any color and were like nearly transparent, and we had to find middle ground in another format for me to be able to send it to them, and which is a problem I know is not going to happen when it comes to using Adobe Fresco with Photoshop, because of course they belong to the same family. The third one, which really surprised me, and only recently when I saw a video I realized that Fresco has included a lot of great micro animation tools in the software, and some of those are infinitely superior compared to Procreate. Now some of you may say, hey, Procreate's launched Procreate Dreams, it's extremely capable. I waited for it for months, I downloaded it literally the first day, but I don't think that is as user friendly. Some of the ways in which you can do micro animations with Adobe Fresco are really amazing and extremely intuitive, and they make a task which I earlier used to spend hours doing far easier. Right now I use Procreate, break down all the layers, and then use another software called Toonsquid to be able to do some of these micro animations. With Fresco, the last reel I actually put up, I did not even have to do that because those are features which are built natively in Fresco. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I had to do an animation where I wanted to show a lot of banknotes or money really falling. In Procreate, I would have needed to spend hours sketching that frame by frame, but not only one, then I would have needed to multiply it and then the interplay of all of them. So technically, X number of frames of the first banknote and Y number of frames of the second banknote could not have been animated separately on different layers. They had to sort of be infinite permutation combinations of those for me to be able to get that right. However, in Fresco, and let me show you how easy it is. If I so choose, first I can actually make that animation very simply. So here at the bottom right is the animation tool. Let's say I'm showing this banknote falling. I'm going to do a very shoddy but quick job of it just to sort of demonstrate how easy it is. Let's assume this is what I finally want to animate, and this is, as you can see, like a banknote falling. Now there are two features which make it amazingly easy in Fresco. Feature number one, you can actually animate layers separately. If let's say there is one layer where there is a zoom happening while another layer where there is a banknote falling, unlike Procreate, here I can actually animate them separately. Second, which is even more amazing, is there is this option of path. Typical path effect is where you define that it is, let's say, falling from the top. However, you can actually add multiples as well. As you see now, it's not one banknote, there are actually multiple. Then you can actually scatter them. Let me define multiple paths. So as you see now, there are tens of those falling. And then not only that, there are other tools to make it even more realistic. So I can actually add a little bit of an angle. I can actually randomize it. I can choose if they should grow and shrink while falling. That is the capability which is inbuilt. That actually helped me recently create this animation. Would have spent hours on it in Procreate, but here it was literally, making one and defining that path and creating multiples, and boom, I had it. I have no stake in this, guys. I am not at all paid by Adobe. In fact, I'm hardly an Adobe user. I don't even use their desktop apps, but this one really surprised me to the extent that I actually moved to Fresco for the last comment. If that video was useful, please do like, share and subscribe. Usually I make a lot of content around stuff like career breaks and side hustles, but I also intend to talk a lot more about my illustrations, being an Instagram creator, how I make money, and how hard or easy it is, the algorithm and whatnot. So thank you.